We are at the beginning of a new unit, and this new unit is on systems of equations. So in order to introduce systems of equations, let's talk about something that you do know that will kind of lead into systems. So linear equations. Linear equations are something that you are very familiar with. Here are a few examples of linear equations. We worked with these last quarter. Linear equations are one equation, and they have one variable. So one equation, so just look for one equal sign, that means we have one equation, and they have one variable in them. Notice all of these equations just have an x. Okay, so this is an example of linear equations, and last quarter you guys got really good at learning how to solve these. And remember, when you solved linear equations, you would end up with an answer of x equals something. Okay, so for each of these, your answer or your solution would be x equals something. And whatever that number is that you found, you could plug it back in for x and it would make your equation true. That was the solution to your linear equation. So let's talk now about systems of equations. This is a new vocabulary word that you'll want to add to your notes. A system of equations is now we have two equations to work with, and those equations have two variables in them. Here are two examples of systems of equations. So notice this example, there are two equations, and there are two variables that I'm working with. I'm working with x's, and I'm working with y's. Now the solution for a system of equations will have an answer or a number solution for x and for y. So just like in linear equations, I had to find a value for the variable, I also have to find values for the variables in systems, but this time I just have two variables to find solutions for. So when I solve a system of equations, my answer will give me a value for the x and for y. And when I plug in these numbers back in for x and back in for y in both equations, it will make each equation true. So the same thing would be the case for this example. You might be asking yourself right now, how in the world do I solve a system of equations? That looks really difficult. How am I supposed to find a number for x and for y that works for both equations at the same time? Well, I'm here to tell you it's not too difficult. And the good news is you already know one of the ways for solving systems. We're going to learn three methods for solving systems of equations, and the first one is by graphing. Graphing is something that we did last quarter, so I hope you paid attention and you got really good at graphing, because graphing is one of the methods for solving systems. We're also going to be learning the method of substitution and elimination. And these ways are really cool. Once you get the hang of them, they're actually pretty fun. But what you need to worry about learning right now is how do you figure out if a system of equations has one solution, many solutions, or no solution. So in other words, will my system of equations have one solution? In other words, just a value for x and for y. Will it have many solutions where there's lots of numbers that I can plug in for x and lots of numbers I can plug in for y that would make both equations true? Or would there be no solution? There's no number that I can plug in for x and no number that I can plug in for y that would make the equations true. So this is what we're going to be focusing on in the upcoming lesson videos and in the upcoming assignment. The key for figuring out how many solutions a system of equations has is by graphing. So we're going to be graphing equations to determine how many solutions they have. So in the upcoming lesson videos, they're going to show you how to graph systems. So if you don't remember or you don't feel strong in how you graph equations, then pay close attention to how they graph, but also pay really close attention to what the graphs look like when there is one solution, many solutions, or no solution. So that is my tip for you as you move on through the next 3 lesson videos, and good luck. Let me know if you need anything.